with me. Come and fly away with me. Come and fly away with me.
Kauto Star, one of the most successful steeplechasers of the modern era. National Hunt champion racehorse trained by the fantastic Paul Nichols. In this episode, I chat to Nick Child and I hear firsthand of what it was like to be Kauto's groom. As you will see in the video, I had to come up with a makeshift studio due to having work going on. However, this did not stop the fantastic chat that I had with Nick all about Kauto. Fingers crossed. You like my makeshift studio? I'm basically like in a little cabin at the moment because we've got work going on. So I've just popped this screen up just to make it look a little bit.
That's all right.
A little bit visually pleasing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bit of magical editing and hopefully it'll look all right.
Oh yeah, perfect. I got sent a lovely picture of Corto today, actually.
Oh, did you?
I put it on Instagram. It was quite an old one actually. It was from years back.
Oh.
But he's amazing, really. Like he was such a good looking horse. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you were looking after him, weren't you? You were his groom.
I was his groom. Yeah, I was his. I looked after him. I think for 3 whole seasons. Yeah, no, I had some very good times with him. Yeah, I was very lucky. Like the story, which I'll tell you very shortly, was just yeah, I never expected it, but you know, it happened, and you're right place at the right time was basically how it happened. Yeah.
So was this at the start of essentially your career? Like, how did you get into being a groom?
Well, my grandfather, he just loved to bet. So my mother's dad, and and basically the story goes that one Christmas, I obviously, I went and had a bet with him, and he put me a bet on one Saturday, and it was to try and win a few quid and you'd buy some Christmas presents or something, right? But so he obviously liked it. He just liked to bet and stuff, and just loved his racing. Would go like loads, and obviously when he was younger and stuff, and yeah, just got hooked on it that way, and just started following it, and just the rest is history. Like I got to a point at the secondary school. I was probably about 12 or 13 at the time, and it got to a point at secondary school where I had this idea that I was going to be a jockey, which is just ludicrous, being like 6 foot tall and all the rest of it. But I had a few rides. I had probably not many, half a dozen, maybe 10 rides, maybe in total, like point to pointing and stuff.
Oh, right.
But yeah, just got hooked on it through him, and before I knew it, it was like my life just revolved around racing. Like it was just unbelievable.
Is there a height limit when you point to point, or is it just?
No, obviously, the weights are about sort of 12 stone, or some of them a little bit more, but the majority are like 12 stone. But no restrictions as such. Just obviously whether or not you can do the weight, like it's just a bit like racing under rules, but just they carry a bit more. Yeah. No, pointing's great. I love it. I've done a lot of commentating on the point to pointing down in sort of the West Country, and there came a point before I moved away that I was just doing so much of it every weekend. Like every weekend I was doing probably 1 or 2 point to points. And I was actually making quite decent money out of it as well, because it was all cash, and it was quite handy, really.
You're like, did you decide you wanted to be a groom? Like, obviously, when you realised, I can't, I'm not small enough to be a jockey. Did you think, well, I'd like to give that a go? And then did you apply?
Yeah, well, so where I lived and grew up, there's a chap called Andrew Reid who was training in Mill Hill, like just up from sort of Finchley. And basically, when I got hooked on racing, obviously through my grandfather and stuff like that. And then at school, we had to go and do our work experience in secondary school. And by this point, I was fairly au fait with like trainers and different things, and on the internet searching trainers and different things. And I realized that Andrew was in London, and I said to my careers teacher, I want to go here. And he sort of said, well, you can't, it's with racehorses, like, it could be absolutely disastrous. And anyway, so long story short, I was 2 weeks, and I actually spent 1 week up at like a riding school place in Barnet somewhere, literally knew nothing. I knew absolutely fuck all, really. I couldn't tell you what the place is called, but it was up there, and I remember like getting the bus and the tube up there and stuff, and not knowing anything. And I went with another lad, actually, this Russian lad who I was at school with. And we just had a bit of a laugh, and then the second week got a bit more serious because I knew I was going to Andrews, and I met some lads there that worked there that like really taught me a lot early on. And one chap, Roger, he was the head lad, and they taught me how they got me on a horse in like the first couple of days to teach me to ride, and it was just insane. Like I remember, I was being lunged round on this old quiet thing, and I remember them taking the irons and the levers off the saddle and basically saying, "Stay on." That's how they taught me.
Really?
It was like you as a rider would understand, and it was just like, and I just done it because I thought it was the done thing. Like I didn't know, and anyway, they taught me, and like I was very lucky that I ended up going to like Paul's and different. And I've ridden. Look, I've ridden a couple of Gold Cup winners out. I've ridden a Champion Chaser. I've ridden some good flat horses and stuff like that. So it's I've been very lucky, and basically just went to Andrews, and before I knew it, I was leading up like nearly every horse in the yard. Did up quite a few winners. Going racing, I just loved it, and then I thought, this is me. Like I'm sold. Like I'm going to be a stable lad, and then try and be an assistant or whatever, and then obviously broadcasting came along, so it sort of worked out quite nicely, I think, in a sense, the way it's all panned out.
So then, did you go to Paul's after you were at Andrews?
No, well, I went I was at Andrews, and then I went to Seamus Mullins's, who trains down near Stonehenge. And actually, on my filly that I've got in training, she's just moved up to Newmarket to Julia Philbin, but Seamus did train her for me originally. So I went to Seamus's for a couple of years, and then had a pointer, rode my own pointer, and stuff like that, and trained him and learnt a lot there. And then Philip Hobbs, I was at Philip Hobbs's for a couple of years, and then on to Paul Nichols's. And that's where I probably, that's where I spent most of my time. But I've been in a few different yards. I mean, I spent a good bit of time with Harry Fry, Anthony Honeyball. So I sort of, it's like there are certainly like lads and girls that have been in much like gone round, like you don't want to sort of get tarnished with the reputation of like doing the rounds and just going from yard to yard. But I think I went to enough yards to get a lot of good experience, and I was quite fortunate. I mean, don't get me wrong, like I don't go out there trying to dine out on Kauto Star, but I can tell you one thing, Hannah, it is very, very handy. And to say you've been associated with him is quite fortunate, and it does go a little way in some respects. So, but yeah, look, I mean, plenty of experience before I went to Paul's, and I remember going to get the job at Paul's, and I went down. I had an interview on the Sunday, and I went down on the Saturday night. We went out into town, got absolutely blottoed, and I went in the Sunday morning, and I didn't know what to do really and what to expect. And luckily, I knew Dan Skelton quite well, and I knew a lot of them, and I didn't have to ride out. I just went in, met Paul, addressed him as Mr. Nichols, then straight away he says, no, Paul, call me Paul. And then it was Paul, and like I wouldn't say we're like, close friends, but now that I've been there and spent a lot of time there, and there's obviously a lot of mutual respect for each other, we would probably, like, it wouldn't just be like, the way like a lot of stable lads and girls would come and go, and I probably got that rapport with Paul where if I ring him up now, he'd be good as gold, and we'd chat, or if I see him now, we'll talk, and he'll ask me how I'm doing and different things, and it's quite nice that we certainly like parted on very good terms. And I think because we had that association with a good horse, like we were all part of that journey. Like that's something that I'll never forget him, and he'll never forget me, so it's quite nice.
How long were you there for at Paul's?
So I went in the summer of 2007, and then I was there for about 4 years, first off. And then when I came back from Malaysia, having worked out there for a year, I actually went back to Paul's for like another 6 months or so, and led up another Cheltenham Festival winner won the Coral Cup with a horse called Au Petit Soin. So yeah, I was probably there all up about 4.5 years.
What's the average time that you would generally stay at a yard for? Because I know you said you don't necessarily want to be known for doing the rounds, but is it sort of a normal thing though to sort of stay like a certain yard and then move on, or?
Yeah, look, it's not. I mean, I when I was at Paul's, there was a couple of staff there that had been there donkey's years, and some do. I think it all depends on the circumstance, really. I mean, you never want to. I mean, look, they're sort of both ends of the spectrum, really. There are people that stay in one job for 20, 25 years and become part of the furniture. I mean, Clifford Baker, the head lad, I mean, he's been there 20 plus years. That's a lifetime, he's got grown up kids and stuff. So, and then there are other staff that sort of go somewhere for 6 months or a year and get bored, and then they want to go somewhere else. So it's each to their own, really. I always thought, I mean, like, I suppose I'm quite lucky that I've ended up doing the job that I'm doing, because it's probably more beneficial to be doing this job than being a stable lad, or like, don't get me wrong, I wanted to be an assistant trainer, and I've been a head lad and I've been a pupil assistant trainer and stuff like that, but in the back of my mind I was always going to be a commentator and a broadcaster, and there came a point where I had to choose between one or the other, and I chose this, which I think is the right decision. But I think I definitely learned a lot going to different yards for, say, 2 years and 18 months. And, I like to think I got enough out of it, and I'm very lucky, like on the side, trained a few horses as a hobby, and we've trained winners and stuff. So, I like to think I've got half an idea what to do.
Where did you do that then? Was that a separate yard, or did you assist?
So me and an ex-girlfriend, who actually, it's funny, she actually is the travelling head girl now at Paul Nicholls', Kate. And we had an old horse called Oh Sunny Boy, and he was rated low enough, a thoroughbred, and he ran in there were these thoroughbred races under the Arab racing rules that you could run in. Basically, it was like a point to point, minimal prize money, but they were on proper race courses. So like there'd be an Arab meeting at, say, Hereford or Fakenham or Huntingdon, and there'd be like a couple of thoroughbred races. So we had this little handy horse, and then so my girlfriend rode her first couple of winners on him. Like, she wasn't going to be a jockey, but she'd done it and everything else. And then a good friend of ours won on him, Craig Thompson, and we trained him, and he probably ran for us. Oh, he won 5 races for us. And I think we probably had about 25 runs out. He was a brilliant horse, and a couple of years ago he succumbed to colic, which is quite sad. But we won with him. He won for us when he was 12 years old. So, we had him. He done well for us, and we had him. And I've had a few pointers and stuff as well down through the years. But Sonny was the best one that we ever had. And obviously now I've got Mrs. Meader in training, and I've had 1 or 2 others in training as well. So I always try and keep a hand with something, because I sort of feel that when I return to the UK, I'd love to have a horse of my own and just train it on the side, like a point-to-point horse or something. But to be honest, it all depends what job you're doing, really. Like, I mean, it's a 24/7 job, isn't it, with horses? So it's very difficult. But while I'm earning money, while I'm earning well enough to have one in training, that's what we'll do.
So you never fancied being a trainer then, going into that?
Yeah, I did. I like I say, when Harry Fry left Paul Nicholls', I actually spoke to Paul and sort of said, look, I want to take Harry's job, like, as pupil assistant. And I sort of harbored ambition to be a trainer, but as I'm sure you're aware, like, so many of them don't make it, and you need a lot of backing and support, or born with a gold spoon in your mouth, and then you can sort of crack on with it or whatnot. But I mean, that sort of thing was never going to happen for me. And I mean, I suppose, like, Johnson White, who's the assistant trainer at Philip Hobbs's, he once said to me riding out, I asked him if he was ever going to train, and he said, well, why do I want it? It's a silly thing to do, he said, because I'm number 2 in a big, powerful yard that does well. Why would I want to start on my own and perhaps be unsuccessful? So it made a lot of sense. And anyway, like I say, I think going down this route as a broadcaster has certainly paid dividends, because I've been able to, like, travel out here and be out here and stuff, and I've been very lucky. I mean, I've been able to go to different countries and cool races. I mean, I've commentated on racing in India and Mauritius and Malaysia, and I've been quite fortunate, quite lucky. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great job, really.
And because you've sort of done it firsthand, like been at the scene.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's true. And I think, without going into having the knowledge firsthand of horses is paramount. I mean, it gives you such a better understanding of why they do things, and, what a cross nose band is and what a ring bit does and different things, So
Yeah. I really would love to know what your sort of day-to-day routine as a groom was, because I don't know, and many other people don't either. So what did it entail for you to be a groom?
It was a lot of hard work. Obviously a lot of early mornings, and a lot, it wasn't always very, very pleasant and very nice. But I mean, basically, it's like anything. I think the fundamentals are there. If anyone's got a horse, whether it be a happy hacker or a racehorse or a dressage horse or whatever, I mean, the basics are more or less the same. I mean, the actual sort of schedule of things was probably a little bit different. Obviously it's quite routine for racehorses, and I mean, it's not as if you can just go in and say, I'll ride him out in the evening today, or I'll ride him out in the morning, or whatever, So yeah, look, you'd go in nice and early. I especially with Corto, I was used to go in quite early and get him done first and keep him in a nice routine. And yeah, just the basics. You'd go in, obviously muck out, do your 4. The board comes out, and then you obviously know what you're riding, and you sort of work through the morning and get your horses ridden, and obviously do as you're told, and whatever work they're doing, and then yeah, it's actually, it's a really nice job actually, because I mean, when I was working in London, I used to go and ride out for Lawney Hill, and Victoria Pendleton was there at the time, and Vicky's lovely, like she's a lovely person, and I was chatting to her one day, and she was sort of saying, oh, what a lovely job this is, and how great is it? And I said, yeah, you're right. I said, because I mean, let's be honest, like she's in a very privileged position, she's a very decorated Olympian, and she's obviously got a lot of money and everything else, but we both agreed that what a great job that you can work outside, travel, have a good laugh at the same time, probably 9 times out of 10 get accommodation, which if it would be okay and it wouldn't cost the earth, like, and it's just, I think it's a fantastic job. Like, I couldn't recommend it highly enough to anybody. I mean, yeah, like there are days when you get pissed off and like you don't want to be there. Like if you're riding out in the rain, like I remember one day riding out, and I remember we got back in. I remember taking my boots off, and they were literally like just full of water, and it was cold and it was horrible. And you just think, why am I doing this? Like, why am I doing it? You're trying to change waterproofs halfway through the day because it's miserable. But ultimately, like the highs outweigh the lows, and like I was lucky that I had a good horse, and winning Gold Cups and King Georges and stuff like that. And I mean, just the job, I think personally, I think the job, Hannah, is a great job. Like I think working in racing, and working in racing has got better now as well. Like you know yourself that there's a lot of this, this racing welfare and different things, and Stable Lads Association and all the rest of it. So the actual conditions of working as a stable lad have got much better. And for me, that's quite nice to see, because I mean, I obviously finished, I got out of being a stable lad for a couple of years now, good few years, but I've seen how it's changed and developed over time. And I think now that the staff have got a really good deal, and they get a lot of they get well looked after, I think. And somewhere like Paul's, it was great. Like Paul, you get so well looked after in a good yard like that. And I mean, anybody that's ever interested to get into racing, I would always encourage them to try and go. Always. I got told this when I was younger, and I think if you're going to get into racing, you've got to go to the best yard possible. I mean, it's okay. Like, it's all well and good going to, say, a local yard where you might have a contact and it's a small yard and to get going. But I think once you're up to speed, you've got to get to the best yard you possibly can, because, and again, if you get, all you need is one good horse. I was very lucky being at Paul's that I had a few good horses. I had Twist Magic, and all right, yeah, I looked after him when he got killed, which was very sad, and but a great horse. I had another lovely horse called Pasco, a big grey horse I absolutely adored. He won 5 times or something, 6 times. So like, all you need is one good horse. If you get one good horse, then you know, could take you anywhere, you know.
For someone who is watching this and they'd like to do it, how could they get into being a groom? How would they get into the industry?
Yeah, well, I think obviously the British Racing School is the best place to start always, because they obviously are sort of, you know, industry sort of, you know, industry schooling, as it were, or the Northern Racing College. But I think like it's, if you go down that sort of route, it's accessible to absolutely everybody. And there's no, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, your experience, your color, your creed, anything like it, you know. And if you want to do it, that's the most important thing. I mean, if you've got the ambition, the passion to do it, and you love horses and you're a team player, it's easy for anyone. And I think, like I say, you know, going through, say, the British Racing School is the easiest way. I mean, I was a bit different. Like, I never actually went to the British Racing School because I obviously, when I started, I mean, I'm 33 now, so it was like 15, you know, so it was a fair while ago, really. You know, I just went straight to Andrews, and then in the summer, he then gave me a job and said, well, look, stay on. And then once I finished up, you know, once I decided to move on from there and go into a jump yard, you know, you were more valuable in the yard than you were being sent away for 9 weeks. But I think now the way things have developed and have improved, I mean, once you go through the necessary sort of structure and like through the racing schools and different things, I mean, it really is a job for anybody, and anybody that's, you know, willing to work hard and do it. So yeah, like it's not. I mean, it's very, like I say, I think it's anyone's job if they want it, really. And the thing with racing as well is that there's always great sort of like camaraderie, and everyone's willing to help each other, you know, and it's stuff like that. And you see it time and time again, don't you, with like, you know, the jockeys and stuff like that. And you know, people are always very charitable in racing. So it's a nice sort of, I mean, don't get me wrong, not everyone's nice, you know. You know, the majority of people are just there to help. And it's a great way of life. And I think if anyone like that harbors the ambition to want to progress through racing, there are so many options to do that. I mean, you can be a head person, you can be a traveling head person, you can be an assistant, you can be a jockey if you're good enough, you can, you know, you can be a trainer, you know, and all the rest of it. So it is good like that. And I think now everyone's getting more help and stuff like this. It's becoming a better industry to be in, you know. I remember like when you ride like a piece of work, like there's no better feeling. Like I remember one day with Harry Skelton, we rode a bit of work. It was like a third lot at Paul Nichols, just, you know, on our own. And we rode this bit of work, and it just went like a dream. And we both pulled up, like, and we just sort of, we might have even like give each other a fist pump, you know. And we were like, yeah, that went good, that felt good. And, you know, like when I didn't ride him all that. I rode him for a fair while, but not like all the time. But when I rode Denman, you know, you'd set foot on the poly track and he'd just take off. Like he was a monster. And just riding nice horses that riding gallops and different things. And just even riding nice horses in their slower paces. Like if you're just lobbing around hacking around on a gallop somewhere. But when a horse settles nice and you can just drop your hands on the withers and he just bowls along, and brilliant, you know, absolutely brilliant. It was a great feeling.
I'd love to talk about Kauto Star. What's that like to work alongside him?
It was actually like it was mad, really. I mean, like I said, I remember when I got given him. So the girl that was looking after him at the time, she was going off to get married, Sonia, and sort of start a family and all that jazz. And she left, and obviously he'd just been beaten by Denman in the Gold Cup.
Right.
And a lot of people were like, you know, sort of writing him off then. It was like ridiculous. I mean, he's still a very good horse. And I remember going there. I'd only been there about a year. Anyway, and there was all this chat, who's going to get Corto? And I was never considered. I would have been 100 to 1, you know. And at one stage, I was the only lad up the top yard. It was all girls, you know. So all the girls would have you know, wanted him and got him. Anyway, and it's still now, even talking about it now, I still actually can't believe that I got given him. So at the yard, we had all these like jackets delivered, like Horseware Island, and they were red. and like they were just delivered as a gift, like a thank you for buying 6,000 rugs every year or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, and they had all the good horses' names on them. So they had like Demon, Corto, Neptune, Calange, all this, right? Anyway, and I wanted one bad. Well, I just wanted one, you know.
Mm.
And Donna Hills, who used to drive the lorry, I asked her for one, and she said, "No, you can't have one. Clifford, you know, the head lad is sort of hogging them and won't let anyone have them. Blah blah blah."
Annoying.
So I said, "Okay, fine." So one, it was probably about July, probably about this time actually. It's probably around about this time of the year, what, 12 years ago, probably, you know. And I was mucking out up the top yard, just minding my own business. And Donna appeared with this jacket in the bag, right? And I could see it said Kauto Star. And she said, and I never forget this, I will never ever forget this to the day I die. She said, "Oh, do you want this jacket?" And I said, yeah. Happy days. Like, thanks very much. And she said, "Do you want the horse to go with it?" And I just said, "Donna, fuck off. Like, you for real?" Like, I know Donna very well. Like, we've been friends for years. I said, "Donna, what? Like, shut up." And she went, no, seriously, they want you to look after Kauto Star. And I was just like, fucking hell, like, this is a bit mad. And so anyway, I said, "Oh yeah, brilliant." And then obviously a lot of people had heard, and everyone was saying, "Oh, you know, your new horse." And shit, I was like, fucking. Anyway, Paul was looking round that night, and he said to me, he goes, "Oh, how do you like your new horse?" And I said, "Well, I don't really know him. Like, I don't, you know, I've never anything to do with him." And he said, "Oh, well, look after him good and do all this, do this." Anyway, that was fine. And yeah, from that day onwards, I was looking after Court. And then, like, literally, then, like, the mad thing is, and it's like so hard to even like explain, is like the next morning, you know, I was coming in to work, and you've got like your 4 horses that you muck out.
Right.
And I'd lost some crappy horse, like whatever I was doing, gave him up, and then the 4 names next to my name, the top one was Kauto Star. So from like then on, it was like, he's mine. And yeah, I remember when I took him to Down Royal for his first run for me. When he returned, he came back, and we decided to put a sheepskin noseband on him.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I think that really helped him, because it just helped him concentrate a bit more. And I remember I'd never gone like, you know, to Ireland with a horse or anything like that. You know, it jumps racing, you might go to Ireland or France, and that's about it. You know, like, whereas on the flat you might go all over. But I remember taking him to Down Royal, and we left like really late at night, and you get the night ferry over there and stuff like that. And I remember getting to Down Royal, and it was absolutely Baltic cold. It was so cold, and I was just like, this is just stupid. Anyway, we got there, and like, everybody wanted a picture with Corto Star. Everyone wanted to pat him. It's just like, he was actually a proper celebrity. And I remember we got there, and Ruby was coming up to ride him out, right? Because obviously we thought he was so precious. Ruby had to ride him. But Nick Mitchell had gone over with a couple of his. He had the Listener, a good grey horse, the Listener, right? So he had the Listener in the race, and he had another horse there. So when I got there, Ruby was riding Corto. Jess, who drove the horse box, was riding Noland, who we took as well, who won. And Nick had the Listener, and he had this other horse. Anyway, he asked me to ride this other horse out for him, Shannon Springs or something. And I'll never forget, and I wish someone had taken a picture of it, because we'd cantered round and we'd done all this, and, you know, I was like, you know, in awe of Ruby Walsh. Like, this is like Ruby Walsh.
Surreal.
So we're walking back, and I was next to Ruby, and Jess was chatting to Nick, and Nick was probably more chatting to Jess, you know. And anyway, I'm next to Ruby, and I'll never forget, Ruby had his feet out of his irons, chin strap undone, cigarette in his mouth, mobile phone in his ear, on Kauto Star.
Yeah.
And I'm sat next to him like this, and I'm like, fucking hell, Ruby, like, what are you doing? Like, anyway, he won there. He won in Down Royal, and that was like, oh, he's back and everything else. And that was like massive. I remember getting back, and I'd organised, like, well, my girlfriend at the time, Kate, who we had the horse with, we'd all like had a few people around our house, like, for drinks and celebrate, and I just thought it was great. And then obviously he went to Haydock, and then it all went downhill, because Sam Sam Thomas got unseated off him when he was going to win that day. So like we've gone from like winning to like unseating at the last, and I was just gutted. And then he went and won a King George.
Oh yeah.
And then obviously when he won the Gold Cup, and that was a day that I'll never ever forget. I remember the one thing I remember about that day, two things actually. In the parade, it was the old Cheltenham before they redone it, and it was like absolutely heaving, packed grandstand. And I was obviously leading up Corto and Ruby, and it was in the parade, and you go on the track, and like it's just everything's buzzing, and it's just like it's so mad. And I remember looking up at like the grandstand, just like I was in a bit of a daze. And I remember Ruby tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, Nick, are you all right? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just taking it all in, Ruby. And he sort of like, he looked at me and he went like, yeah, good man. He said, this doesn't happen every day of the week. Anyway, and he won. And I remember coming back and like, I ran up the hill at Cheltenham. I've never run so fast in my whole life. And I got to top of the hill, and Pat Healy was there taking pictures, and Ruby and I like doing all this, 2 Gold Cups and all that. And phenomenal. And the music they used to play then for the like Order of Merit races was that Chicane, right? Saltwater. And it's a bit of a banger, like it's a good tune. And that was like, ever since then, like, I mean, I had it as my ringtone for like 3 years afterwards, because it was like, it just reminded me of Kauto Star.
Yeah.
But it was like, it just sent like shivers down your spine, this music, right? It was just quality. And leading them in. And as we walked in, there's a great picture. I think I've got one here, but I've got it at home anyway. Is that it was obviously Paul and Ruby and me and Clifford, and Megan Nichols was like young at the time, very young. Harry Derham was very young. And it was kind of like synchronized. Like as we all walked in, we all sort of looked at each other, and then we give it the whole fist pump thing, and we just like, and that's when the music really like lifted, and it was just like wild. It was just, it was so mad. Like, and you know, and then the next day, like that night, we got absolutely blottoed. You know, we were absolutely hanging.
Yeah.
And the next morning, I went down to the shop and bought every single newspaper in the shop because Kauto Star was on the front of it. And I literally have got them somewhere at home. I've got every single newspaper from that day, the 14th of March, 2009. And that day, I think it was that day, or the following day, I had a point-to-point to commentate at, and I commentated on 12 races. I think it was the day after Corto won the Gold Cup. I had to go and do this point-to-point, and I was just like, knackered. And and then just the whole, but like, he was very intelligent, you know, like he was a very clever horse. I mean, he, like, you really had to respect him. Like, and you know what and one of the nicest things ever was, like, he would always look great in his skin, you know, he had a great coat, great skin. And I would go in, even in stables, I'd be practicing quarter marks on him for like ages, right? I'd go in early and do him. I'd spend so much time with him.
Yeah.
And I used to, like, you'd go in and you'd make sure like his mane was all damped down, and it was like, you know, you put some, and if he was going on the walker, so like, normally there's a walker for like 6, 8 horses, and there'd be like 2 lots, you know, 3 till 4, 4 till 5. And he always used to go on 3 till 4, like not every day, but some days. And I was so proud. Like, I was always so proud to lead him round the yard, like to go to the walker, because he was in box 1, so he had to go all the way around. But if he was on the walker, I'd make sure he was like hot clothed and he was like gleaming. And I'd put like different quarter marks on him and shark's teeth and everything. And when he used to walk out, like he used to like he'd always carry himself so well. And I remember you'd walk him around the yard, and this is no word of a lie, like all the other staff would literally stop and, like, you know, pay homage to Kauto Star. Like, it was just crazy. Like, if you went round past like the row of boxes and down to the walker, they would all stop and look at him, or give him a pat, or give him a bit of grass or some hay, and like, but like, I was so proud of him because like he was mine, and it was like, don't get me wrong, like, you know, I'm not a jealous person or anything like that, but it's like, you know, this horse, like, he was mine, and he was the best horse in the yard. He was like a horse of a lifetime. And also, what gave me great pleasure was that at one stage I was the only lad working up that yard in the top yard, and I looked after the best horse. And it was like, you'd always have the girls say, oh, I muck out my horses better than you, and I groom them better than you. And I would just turn around and say, well, yeah, but you don't look after Kauto Star, do you?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, you know, he's mine. But yeah, like, you take him down to the walker, and like, oh, just quality. Like, he was just amazing. And when people used to come in and see him as well, I remember a woman came in one day, and I can't, it might have been, yeah, she was like getting all emotional because she's met Corto Star. And she said like how much she really loved him. So I went and found the closest pair of scissors and cut her off some of his tail and give it to her.
Yeah.
So I don't know who she was, but she's got some of Kauto Star's tail. And yeah, like, and I remember we used to parade him after the Gold Cup. And I remember I used to get asked for an autograph. Like, what the fuck? Like, you know, like, it's just crazy. Like, and yeah, no, it was brilliant. And, you know, people would stop you at the races and ask you about him, and, you know, that kind of thing. And, oh, it was just an amazing journey. Like, I mean, you know, he took me to places where you could only ever dream of going, like, not literally physically places, but just like, you know, everything. Like, just, it was like, it's like a you know, out of body experience. Like, Corto Star, like, he seriously was good. Like, he was the best, you know. And it was a massive shame, obviously, what happened to him. And actually, interestingly enough, I was at Megan Nichols's 18th, and I was actually at Wimbledon when I heard that he got killed, right? And it was actually a funny story. It was with some very good friends of mine, but obviously it wasn't very funny because the horse had died. But I actually went on a couple of dates with one of the nurses from Valley Equine, where he was. It was all very sad, really, in the end. Like, but when it was happening and when he was racing, I mean, yeah, just the best. I mean, he won. You know, down at Paul's, he used to get the plaques on the door. Like, his door was just adorned with plaques for all his wins. Like, he had his door, you couldn't see the door. It was just green plaques because he'd won all these Group 1s. And now it's, as you walk into the yard, where you'll see it one day, is that there's a massive big wooden board, and it's got all these plaques on there, like, and it's just amazing. Like, 16 Group. Every time I go to the yard, I just stop and like, you know, sort of respect it. You know.
They're with him till left at Paul's.
No, sadly not. So, in the summer of 2011, I took him to Punchestown, and he'd pulled up right at Punchestown, and that was another interesting story because he pulled up, and it was the one and only time really that Clive Smith like led him in, like, and he actually came and took him off me, asked me to, like, if he could lead him in, because it basically was, we all seemed to think it was like his last run. And Clive was saying, oh, you know, he's done us proud and this and whatever, and, you know, so I remember like half welling up, and I got a lump in my throat, and I thought, oh, like, this is the end, like, this is it, like, this is his last run. Anyway, and what actually enhanced that furthermore is that when Ruby got off him, he asked me not to take him back to the stables and to wait like out the back by like the parade ring, because his wife Gillian, he came out with his wife Gillian and his kid, and he wanted a picture with Corto, with him holding Corto and his daughter, so because she was only very young, you know, and he wanted it like as a memory or whatnot. So I thought, with all this, well, this must be like, this is the end, like, you know, he's going to finish. And anyway, I got offered this job at Tom George's in the summer to go and be his assistant, and I was absolutely terrified. I was absolutely terrified to tell Paul that I was going to leave. It took me like a week to pluck up the courage to go and see him, because I was absolutely shitting myself. Anyway, I went down there one day in the summer, and I saw him just as he was getting into the car, and I asked, like, you know, I said, I've got a minute, and he said, yeah, what's up? And I told him, and he basically accepted it very well. And he basically said, oh, well, he said, I wouldn't worry about it. Like, Corto's probably finished, you know, blah, blah, blah. We'll probably retire him and all this. This is genuinely what he said.
Yeah.
And that sort of made it better for me to leave, because I thought, well, if he's going to be retired, you know, that's fine.
You can both
anyway, he wasn't. But he wasn't retired, and he came out and won at Haydock that time. Like, massively emotional. And then he won a King George. He won a 5th King George, and it's like I remember on both of those occasions, I was at home with Kate, like my girlfriend at the time, and I was watching it, and I was literally watching it in floods of tears. I just like couldn't help but like burst into tears because it was like so amazing. Like this horse was 12 years old, and he was like just the best. And that was actually, I don't have many regrets, to be fair. Like you shouldn't have, but as it turned out, I should never have given that horse up. You know, I should have stayed with him to the absolute end.
Right.
Like, you know, till he retired from racing. But you know, I didn't, and it's not, don't get me wrong, it's not a major regret. I don't lose sleep over it because it's done now. But like at the time, that was the one thing I wish I hadn't done. You know, I wish I stayed with him for his racing career. But yeah, no, just yeah. I mean, I haven't got so much here. I mean, there's a picture here of him. Like I've got quite a lot of stuff here, but like I literally have a shrine to this horse at home. Like I've got a load of like winning the sheets that he used to win, you know, like the stable, like the sheet. Like I got a couple of like number cloths, like when he won his Gold Cup, the number. I got like a plate. Yeah, like anything Kauto Star, I have it, you know, Steve. Like, and even now, like I mean, it's, you know, he's been gone a long time. Like I mean, he was, what would he have been this year? He would have been 20 this year, I think, you know. But he was actually, I was born on the 17th of March and he was born on the 19th. I think one Gold Cup he ran on the 18th. So that was quite nice. You know, he's so good. Like I've never ever, like, I mean, I imagine horses like Enable and, you know, these really good horses, you know, some of these Aidan O'Brien horses probably like, you know, they're very much the same. And, you know, but like for me, from a personal experience, like I've never come across another horse like him. He just had this presence about him, like, which made him good. Like, you know, and I never rode him once, right? In his whole career, I never was allowed to ride him once. Anyway, but I remember the defining thing I sort of, you know, realized about him was that he had an incredibly long neck. Like, so from his wither to his ears, he was very long. And I remember riding him and I like went to like grab his ear, you know, and just play with his ear and whatever. And I mean, I'm quite tall and, you know, but like, I could barely get there. Like he was that long. And I remember thinking, crikey, like, Jesus, like I've never, you know, he's incredibly long from the wither to the ear. And that's probably where, you know, he would always reach for a fence, but he'd get there. Yeah. And there was a great one, the fence at the side of the course in the King George. I think it's about the third in the King George. One year, he reached for it and made it. And Imperial Commander tried to go with him and banked it. You know, like he hit it really hard. But Corto could reach for a fence and get there. You know, like whereas other horses couldn't do that. But like he was a complete freak canner. You know, like he actually won a race in France he was 10 days shy of his 3-year-old birthday and he won a race. So he technically won as a 2-year-old over, I think it was over hurdles or AQPS bumper or something like that. But, well, you know, he wasn't AQPS, but it might have been a hurdles race or something, or a flat race, you know, something like that. But I mean, he was just different class. Like I'd ridden next to him for, you know, a good few times. Yeah. When Clifford used to ride him, and he had gears, like it's just amazing. Like he was just all class, you know, all class.
So do you think if you got like another horse in training in the future, you'd name him after Kauto Star?
No, I don't. Maybe I'd give a horse like a name, like sort of like some sort of association to him. Maybe, I don't know. Like I don't know. Just maybe like the day he won the Gold Cup was March the 13th. You know, you might call one March 13th or something. I don't know. Like just, you know, as something synonymous with the whole thing. But I did think back years ago about getting my racing colours, but getting the reverse of Corto. Oh. Like so Clive Smiths were green with yellow spots. I thought about getting yellow with green spots, and just reversing them so they look similar, but they weren't. But I just thought, well, no, everyone's got their own colours and this, that, and the other. So, but no, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, with this filly I've got now, you know, hopefully one day she'll breed a foal or breed a few foals. I mean, if we ever raced any, then yeah, I guess a bit of thought would have to be put into its name, and there might be some association with Corto or something. I don't know, but I'll have to think about it.
That's what I mean. Like with all the race horses, you know, there's so much more to than just the rider. There's like
Mm.
yourself and the connection with the horse. And obviously, you went on like a journey, didn't you? Really, with Kauto Star,
Oh,
so
yeah.
a lot of background work behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a big team, you know, like, I mean, only yesterday I was on the phone to my trainer, Julia, and, you know, my horse had the physio in and stuff like that. And, you know, there's more to it than just, you know, jockeys and trainers and owners and
Yeah.
what you see on the race course. You know, there's so much more.
Mm.
There's the person that drives the horse box. There's the person that, you know, mucks the horse out. And yeah, that's it. Exactly. And I mean, I for one would never regret having done the job of a stable lad, you know, to the day I die, because it was a great job, you know, and it always will be. And you know, you make a lot of friends, you learn a lot, and luckily for me, I was able to achieve something that I never even dreamed of, you know. And actually, I've got two regrets actually with Corto Star. The other regret was that I never ever touched the Gold Cup. Can you believe that?
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
Oh,
so when I collected when he won the Gold Cup, Princess Anne was presenting the prizes, right?
mm.
So I got called up, you know, and whatever. And that was great. And I met, you know, first of a member of the royal family. And
Yeah.
anyway, she gave me this envelope. And she said, her exact words were, "I hope there's something useful in there for you." And my response to her was, "Well, that would be two things then." And she went, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "Well, Kauto Star, he's pretty useful as well, isn't he?" And she laughed and was like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, very true, very true." Yeah. And I remember we all stood around for a picture, and like Clive was at the front with the Gold Cup, and I remember looking at it, and I know it's worth. I think it's worth 30,000, and it's about 18 ounces of gold or something. I don't know. It's one or the other, right?
Yeah.
But I never touched it. And then when we used to parade him around the village, we used to have the Gold Cup as well, and people would like, you know, just randomers would just get a picture with it. They'd say, "Oh, can I hold it?" And they'd be allowed to hold it. But I never ever
Nice.
touched it.
Oh
Never
my
ever touched
goodness.
it. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. Like, I mean, I'm sure if I don't know. Well,
You have to
I
borrow
probably
it.
will never have that. I'll
Have
probably
it.
never. I'll probably never touch the Gold Cup. But it was the one thing I never even got a picture with it.
Mm.
I like, yeah. But thing is, I don't think I really needed, like, I don't think it's not the be all and end all to have done that, but
Mm.
it
You
was
had the
something. It
horse,
was something.
so
Yeah, exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And I think the fact that I had the horse was just the best thing ever. Really, never made much money out of it though.
Oh right.
Clive Smith probably. He used to give us some, like, you'd always get a drop, you know, you'd always get some money or something. And
I really wanted to get an insight into what it was like because like I said, I know there's so much that happens like behind the scenes, but a lot of people don't, and I think they forget that.
mm,
I think
yeah, yeah.
people forget that actually, like you said, there's a big team, and to produce what comes out on the race course, it's a lot of
Oh,
hard work. And
yeah, it is. It is. No, it is exactly. And you know, it's never as straightforward as people think. There are people obviously in betting shops and stuff that um, you know, probably think it just happens and don't give it a second thought. But
mm,
I mean, yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of rewarding work. And again, I think I'm probably a bad example because, you know, I had a very good horse, and I mean, he's a horse of a lifetime, but it just goes to show that it's a job that, you know, anyone can do, and it's very rewarding when you know, you get a good horse and everything comes together, you know.
yeah, exactly, and it's something you'll never forget as well,
No, exactly.
and a horse you'll never forget.
Exactly. No, of course. No, absolutely. Look, I'll never forget him. And you know, sort of, it was 10 years last year. I mean, I go back to Cheltenham every single year, and
Mm.
it's always, you know, it's always quite, you know, nice to go back there. And, you know, not that you want to, but yeah, you get recognized and people know who you are, and it's like, you know, Kauto Star and stuff like that. So yeah,
Well,
look, it's great.
that's good because then it's like, you know, people recognize you, especially for everything that you did.
Yeah, no, exactly, exactly. And it's, you know, and don't, like I say, people used to come and visit him and visit the yard and stuff, you know, they'd love to. They always, I always just take time to try and speak to them, and people love all that. They feel like they're a part of it, and I was obviously a big part of it, and I was very lucky, and just it was fantastic, really.
Cool. But thank you so much for staying up super
You're
late
welcome.
to chat to me. It's been great.
I'm sure it will look wonderful. Not because I'm in it, but I'm sure it will.
Well, I'm hoping this is all recorded. Fingers crossed. It's always my worst nightmare that it hasn't recorded or the sound hasn't worked or anything. This is
I'm sure it will. If not, we'll have to do it again.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. Thank you so much. Anyway, I'll speak to you soon.
No worries. Okay, all right. Take care.
And
Thanks,
you.
Anna.
Bye.
Bye-bye.